Hey everyone, I'm Mac. I know it's nighttime, but I've been falling asleep early lately, and I don't know why, and my dog is biting her paw. Annie? No. So, this video is gonna be long, so I hope you're ready for it. And again, it is close to home for me. I want to say it's maybe 2 hours at the most. Maybe not even that, I don't know. But what I do know is that this place can be very haunted. Unfortunately, they don't do any tours unless it's like around Halloween or anything, and I'm like, why? Only on Halloween. And if you hear anything, I have like a lot of bracelets on. I don't know why I put them on. I wanted to. Anyway, let's continue our Maryland tour. And I'm sorry it's been a while. Normal weird things have been happening, and the year has just been weird in general. I don't know why, but it's been weird. Anyway, let's continue. A quiet day on a farmhouse turns into a historical event when a president assassin entered the home to hide. Samuel Alexander Mudd was an American physician who was imprisoned for conspiracy with John Wilkes Booth concerning the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Mudd worked as a doctor and tobacco farmer in southern Maryland. The Civil War seriously damaged his business, especially when Maryland abolished slavery in 1864. That year, he first met Booth, who was planning to kidnap Lincoln, and Mudd was in company with the three of the conspirators. However, his part in the plot, if any, remains unclear. Booth fatally shot Lincoln on April 14, 1865, but he was injured during his escape from the scene. He subsequently rode his conspirator David Harold to the Mudd's home in the early hours of April 15 for surgery on his fractured leg before he crossed to Virginia. Sometime that day, Mudd must have learned about the assassination, but did not report Booth's visit to the authorities for another 24 hours. This fact appeared to link him to the crime, as he did his various changes of the story under interrogation. A military commission found Mudd guilty of aiding a conspiracy in a murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison, escaping execution by one vote. Mudd was pardoned by President Andrew Jackson and released from prison in 1869. Despite repeat attempts by his family members and only to have it expunged, his conviction was never overturned. Born in Charles County, Maryland, Mudd was the fourth of 10 children of Harry Lowe and Sarah Ann Reeves Mudd. He grew up on Oak Hill, his father's tobacco plantation of several hundred acres, which was worked by 89 slaves and was located about 30 miles, 48 kilometers, south of Washington, D.C. At the age of 15, after several years of home tutoring, Mudd went off to boarding school at St. John's Literal Institute, now known as St. John's Catholic Prep High School. In Frederick, Maryland. 2 years later, he enrolled in Georgetown College, Washington, D.C. Then he studied medicine at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and writing his thesis on dentistry. Upon graduation in 1856, Mudd returned to Charles County to practice medicine, marrying his childhood sweetheart, Sarah Frances Dyer Mudd, 1 year later. As a wedding present, Mudd's father gave the couple 218 acres of his best farmland and a new home named St. Catherine. While the house was under construction, the Mudds lived in Frankel's bachelor brother Zerman Dyer, finally moving into their own home in 1859. They had 9 children in all, four before Mudd's arrest, and 5 more after his release from prison. To supplement his income from his medical practice, Mudd became a small-scale tobacco grower. Using 5 slaves according to 1860 census, Mudd believed slavery was defiantly oriented and wrote a letter to the telephonic Orange Brownington to that effect. With the outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861, Southern Maryland's slave system and economy that it supported rapidly began to collapse. In 1863, the Union Army established Camp Station just 10 miles from the Mudd farm to enlist black freedom and runaway slaves. 6 regiments total, over 8,700 African-American soldiers, many from Southern Maryland, were trained there. In 1864, Maryland was exempt from Lincoln's in 1863 Emancipation Proclamation abolished slavery, making it difficult for growers like Mudd to operate their plantation. As a result, Mudd considered selling his farm and depending on his medical practice. Ow. As Mudd pondered his alternatives, he was introduced to someone who said might be interested in buying his property. 26-year-old John Wilkes Booth. According to a statement made by associate conspirator George Anzardo, discovered long after his death and recorded while he was in federal custody on May 1st, 1865. Mudd knew in advance about Booth's plans. Azrold was sure that the doctor knew, he said, because Booth had sent liquors and providences about 2 weeks before the murder to Dr. Mudd. Although that is true, some historians believe that there may have been other reasons behind Mudd's relationship with Booth. The trial brought forth many theories of Mudd's involvement in the assassination of Lincoln. One theory posits that Mudd was involved in a completely different conspiracy that gained the upper hand for the southern states. Prior to killing Lincoln, Booth intended to kidnap the president and ransom him and other political officials of the Union for a large amount of money. The plan was in effect until the night of the assassination, when Booth met Azrold, Nathan Harold, and Lewis Powell, and disclosed the plot to assassinate the president instead. Powell. I knew a girl in school that had the same last name. I wonder if she's related. I don't know, I haven't seen her since elementary school, so. Following the assassination, Paulwell came forth by stating that Booth had not told him until his meeting at the other men did not know about the plot until the night of the assassination. This supports the theory that Mudd may have been an accomplice to the plot of kidnapping the president, but not an conspirator to the assassination. After Booth shot Lincoln on April 14, 1865, he broke his left fibula, when he jumped out of the presidential box while fleeing for his theater. Booth met up with Harold, and both men made for Virginia via Southern Maryland. They stopped at Mudd's house around 4 a.m. on April 15th. Mudd splinted Booth's leg and gave him a shoe to wear. He also arranged for a carpenter, Charles Best, to make a pair of crutches for Booth. Booth paid Mudd $25 in greenbacks for his medical treatment. He and Harold spent between 12 and 15 hours at the Mudd house. They slept in the front bedroom on the second floor. It was unclear whether Mudd had yet been informed about that Booth had killed Lincoln. Mudd went to Brighton during the day and on April 15th to run errands. If he had not already heard the news about the assassination from Booth, he certainly learned of it on his trip. He returned home that evening, and accounts differ as to whether Booth and Harold already left, whether Mudd met them as they were leaving, and whether they left at Mudd's urging with his assistance. It is certain that Mudd did not immediately contact authorities. When questioned, he stated that he had not wanted to leave his family alone in the house, in case the assassins returned and found him. Absent to his family unprotected, he waited until the mass of the following day, Easter Sunday, when he asked his cousin, Dr. George Mudd, a resident in Brampton, to notify the 13th New York Cavalry in Brampton, under the command of Lieutenant David Dana. Much delay in contacting the authorities drew suspicion and was a significant factor of drawing him to the conspiracy. Later testimony, Louis A. Witzman revealed that Mudd hid his meeting with Booth in Washington in December of 1864. In prison, Mudd admitted the Washington meeting, and he said he ran into Booth by chance during a Christmas shopping trip. Mudd's failure to mention the meeting in his interview with the detectives proved to be a big mistake. When Winston told authorities of the meeting, they realized Mudd had misled them and immediately began to treat him as a suspect, rather than a witness. During the conspiracy trial, Lieutenant Alexander Leavitt testified on Friday, on April 21st, I went to Mudd's again for the purpose of arresting him. When he found we were going to search his house, he said something to his wife, and she went upstairs and brought down a boot. Mudd said that he cut off the man's leg. I turned down the top when Booth and saw the name J. Wilkes written in it. After Booth's death on April 26th, 1865, Mudd was arrested and charged with the conspiracy to murder Lincoln. Representative Frederick Stone was the senator. I'm not talking today. Senior Defense Counsel for Mud. On May 1st, President Johnson ordered the formation of a 9-man military community mission to try the conspirators. Mud was represented by General Thomas Erie Jr. The trial began on May 10th. Mary Surratt, Lewis Caldwell, George Ayres, David Harold, Samuel Mudd, Michael O'Leary, Edmund Spangler, and Samuel Arnold were all charged with conspiracy to murder Lincoln. The prosecution called 366 witnesses. This is about the storm again. It's been raining 24/7. Literally. Let's see. Is it going to rain? It doesn't say anything about rain. Oh well. I mean, it's a little dark out there. As I'm doing this video, it is dark outside. What? The defense sought to prove Mudd was a loyal citizen, finding himself the description as a Union man, and arresting that he was a deeply religious man, devoted to his family, and a kind master to his slaves. The prosecution presented witnesses to testify that he had shot one of his slaves in the leg and threatened to send others to Richmond, Virginia, to assist in the construction of the Confederate defenses. The proclamation also contended that he had been a member of the Confederate Communications Distribution Agency and had sheltered Confederate soldiers on his plantation. On June 29th, Mudd was found guilty with the others. The testimony of Lewis J. Wiseman was crucial to obtain the convictions. Excuse me. According to historian Edward Steer, the testimony presented for former slaves was a crucial but faded from public memory. Mudd escaped execution by one vote and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Surratt, Howell, Asrold, and Harold were hanged at the old penitentiary at the Washington Originals on July 7th, 1865. So Mary Surratt, before I continue, not only was involved with, or said to be involved with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, but she was also involved with a lot of other things that people said she was involved with. And her house and the house she lived in when she was young are said to be haunted by her and others. Maybe I'll do a story on Mary Surratt next. Who knows? Mudd or Lavnin, Arnold and Spangler were imprisoned at Fort Jefferson in the dry tundra about 70 miles of West Cape, Florida. The fort housed Union Army deserters and held about 600 prisoners when Mudd and the others arrived. Prisoners lived on the second tier of the fort in unfinished open-air gun rooms called casemates. I really hope that was just my hair. Or the hair. Every time when I'm home alone. Even in the daytime. Now I feel like I'm being watched. Hello? One of his three companions lived in an apartment directly above Fort main entrance, called the Sally Port. In September of 1865, 2 months after Mudd arrived, the control of Fort Jefferson was transferred from the 161st Street, New York Volunteer Infirmary Regiment to 82nd and U.S. colored troops. And before I continue, these are words that were called African Americans back in that day, and I couldn't find anything more appropriate during that time. So if I offend anyone, I am deeply, deeply sorry. It's just what happened back then, and a lot of the things that happened back then, very disgusted by it. So, again, I deeply apologize if I offend anyone by the wording that I found during my research. On September 25th, 1865, Mudd attempted to escape from Fort Jefferson by stowing away on the transport Thomas A. Scott. He was quickly discovered and placed along with Arnold, Orlandon, and Spangler and Horse St. Later Renfell in a large empty ground level gunroom. I'm so sorry. That's embarrassing. Now, soldiers referred as the dungeon. The men were let out of the dungeon every working day for 12 hours and were required to wear leg irons. However, a following December 22nd letter from his wife to President Johnson, the War Department ordered the discontinuance of the shackling and moved to the better quarters, which was accompanied by a jury accomplished by January. Again, I cannot talk. I know I'm being watched now. Hold on. I don't see anyone. Do I really want to do these videos in the basement after this? After the Munson and Dunson, Mudd and the others were returned to the general prison population. However, because the attempt of escape, Mudd lost his privilege of working in the prison hospital and was assigned to work in the prison carpentry shop with Spangler. There was an outbreak of yellow fever of the fall of 1867 at the fort. Orlandon eventually died of it on September 23rd. The prisoner doctor died, and Mudd agreed to take over the position. He was able to help stem the spread of the disease. The soldiers in the fort wrote a petition to Johnson on October 67, saying that the degree of Mudd's assistance. He inspired the hopeless with courage and by his constant presence in the midst of danger and infection, they'll owe their lives to the care and treatment they received in his hands. Probably as a reward, in the work yellow fever epidemic. Oh, that sounds like COVID. Mudd was resigned from carpentry shop to a career job in the Provost Marshal's office, where he remained until his pardon. The influence of his defense attorney, Thomas Earring Jr., who had connections in President Johnson's administration. He was one reason why Mudd was pardoned by Johnson on February 8, 1869. He was released from prison on March 8, 1869. When Johnson on February 1869, he returned to his home in Maryland on March 20th. On March 2nd, 3 weeks after his pardon, Johnson also pardoned Spangler and Arnold. When Mudd returned home, well-wishing friends and strangers, as well as Inquirer newspaper reporters, seized him. Mudd was very reluctant to talk to the press because he felt it had misquoted him in the past. He gave one interview to the New York Herald after his release, but immediately regretted it. On complaint that the article had several functional errors and misprinted his work during the yellow fever epidemic, on the whole, thought Mudd continued to enjoy the support of his friends and neighbors. He resumed his medical practice and slowly brought his family farm back to Pondicherry. In 1873, Spangler traveled to the Mudd farm, and when Mudd and his wife welcomed him, Spangler lived with them for about 18 months, earning his keep and doing carpentry, gardening, and other chores until Spangler's death in February 7, 1875. Mudd always had an interest in politics. In prison, he learned about the political happenings by reading the newspapers that were sent to him. After his release, he then became active in community affairs. In 1874, he was elected as chief officer of the local farmers association by Brampton George. In 1876, he was elected vice president of the local Thailand Hendricks presidential election community. Thailand lost that year to Republican Rutherford B. Hayes in a hotly disputed election. The next year, Mudd ran as Democrat candidate for the Maryland House of Delegates, but was defeated by a popular Republican, William Mitchell. Mudd's ninth child, Mary Eleanor Nettie Mudd, was born in 1876. Mudd was just turned 49 years old when he died of pneumonia on January 10, 1883, and was buried in the cemetery at St. Mary's Catholic Church in Brampton, the same church where he once met Booth. The degree of Samuel Mudd's culpability had remained controversial. Some claim that Mudd was innocent of any wrongdoing, including Mudd's grandson Richard, that he had merely been in prison for training a man who came into his house late with a fractured leg. Over a century after assassination, President Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan both wrote letters to Richmond Mudd in which they agreed that his grandfather had committed no crime. However, other asserts even that Mudd visited Booth 3 times and months before the failed kidnap attempt, including authors Edward Steer Jr., and James Swanson. The first time was November of 1864, when Booth was looking for help in the kidnapping plot and was directed to Mudd by agents from the Confederate Secret Service. In December, Booth again met with Mudd and spent the night at his farm. Later in that December, Mudd went to Washington and introduced Booth to Confederate agent John Surratt. Additionally, George Atwood testified that Booth sent supplies to Mudd's house, preparing for the kidnapping plan. Mudd lied to the authorities, who came to his house after the assassination, claiming that he did not recognize the man who showed up on his doorstep in need of treatment, and leaving the false information about Booth and Harold Wint. He also had the monogram Booth that had cut off Booth's name behind the panel in his attic. Now, the reason why they cut off his leg, not symbolism. Now, the reason why they cut off Booth's leg is because back then they had no anesthetic or medical treatments to numb the leg while they worked on it. So, to prevent infection, they literally cut off body parts, which is disturbing and gross. But the thought search of Mudd's house soon revealed his further piece of evidence, which was later used against him. One hypothesis is said that Mudd was originally complicit in the kidnapping plot, like as the person whom conspirators would have turned for medical treatment in case Lincoln was injured, and Booth thus remembered the doctor and went to his house to get help in the early hours of April 15th. Mudd's grandson Richard unsuccessfully trying to clear his grandfather's name on the stigma of aiding Booth. In 1951, he published The Mudd Family of the United States, a 2-volume history of the Mudd family, beginning with Thomas Mudd, who arrived from England in 1665. A second edition was published in 1969. His papers detailed his attempts to clear his grandfather's name. They were donated to Georgetown University Lonser Library after his death in 2002. Representatives Steny Hoyer and Thomas W. Earing introduced the House Bill in 1885 and to overturn the conviction but failed in community. Mudd then turned to the Army Board of Correction and of Military Recourse, which recommended the conviction of being overturned by the basis that Mudd should have been tried in a civil court. The recommendation was rejected by Acting Army Assistant Secretary Williams D. Clark. Mudd attempted several other legal venues, ending in 2003 when the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear the case because the deadline for filing had been missed. Mudd died of pneumonia in 1883 when he was 49 years old. His home still stands today, and some say is haunted by ghosts from the past. Ghosts of Confederate soldiers and John Wilkes Booth himself are said to haunt Dr. Mudd's house. People hear disembodied voices and footsteps. One of the creepiest and saddest is that a baby died in one of the rooms upstairs. Visitors of the mud home say that they experienced cold spots around the ghost child's crib. Shadows are seen in different places throughout Dr. Mud's house, as well as a woman who looks out of one of the second floor windows. One visitor heard a man's voice say, "I'm not guilty." Many other hauntings experiences happen in Dr. Mun's house and surrounding properties, making it one of the creepiest haunted Maryland attractions in southern Maryland. So if I could, I would definitely go in the mud house and investigate. I have a camera ready to use, and yeah. But because of all the stuff that happened and the fact that Yellow Fever was actually in that building, I'm not sure. But people were living there. Well, not living there, but working there. Um, I guess they're fine because it would have been on the news otherwise. Anyway, again, sorry, this was a very long video. But why is my camera focusing over this way? That's weird. Anyway, thank you for watching my channel and videos. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I am Haunted Girl, and I'll spook you later. Until next time, pleasant dreams.